My name's Jack Murphy. 72 this fall. Used to be Sheriff Murphy to most folks around Rockwell County. Hell, even the mayor called me, sir. I ran that town like a well-oiled rifle, fair, strong, no excuses. I wore the badge with pride for 36 years. Fought in 2 tours before that. Vietnam. Lost half my hearing to a grenade and half my sleep to what I saw over there. But that was then. Now, I sit in room 12B of St. Luke's Medical Center, parked next to a window that doesn't open, staring out at the parking lot like it's a damn postcard. No visits today. Again. The nurses smile, that tight, professional kind, but I can see it in their eyes, another old man taking up space. They don't know who I was. Or maybe they just don't care. The last time my son, Brian, came to see me was 3 months ago. Sat there, phone in hand the whole time, talking about investments and real estate. Barely looked at me. Told me this place was the best option. The responsible thing to do. Then he hugged me, quick, like I was contagious, and walked out. Left me with some overpriced slippers and a pamphlet on positive aging. I remember watching his car disappear through the hospital gate and thinking, you owe me everything, son. Your college, your house, your spine, I gave you all of it. But I didn't say a word. Not then. The betrayal doesn't come with shouts or slammed doors. It comes in silence. In forgotten birthdays. In calls that never happen. In how your name fades from their phone like an old contact they can't bother to delete. Let me tell you a story. Back in '84, I found a girl no older than 16 wandering Route 9, bruised and scared half to death. I carried her in my arms to the station, wrapped her in my jacket, and stayed with her all night. She called me Sheriff Dad for 2 years after that. These days, I ask for a second pudding cup, and the nurse sighs like I'm asking for a kidney. My wife, Linda, passed 2 winters ago. Cancer. She fought it like hell. I slept beside her on that tiny hospice couch, holding her hand through every damn morphine drip. She was the last person who really saw me. Since she left, it's like I became invisible. The kids don't call much. Grandkids barely remember me. On Christmas, they sent an Amazon box with a pre-written card, "Love you, Grandpa." No signature. No call. No pictures. I used to carry a town. Now I can't carry my own damn tray in the cafeteria without someone reminding me to use both hands. I keep thinking, when did I become extra? Not broken. Not dangerous. Just extra. Like a leaf that won't fall off the tree, hanging there out of habit. But here's what they don't know, I remember everything. Every favor I gave. Every night I stayed up guarding a town that slept peacefully because I didn't. Every sacrifice. They think I'm just some tired body in a recliner. A burden. But there's something they forgot. I didn't survive war and bury my soulmate to sit here and rot politely. No. Not me. They made a mistake. And I'm about to remind them who I was. It was a Tuesday. I remember because they served that watery meatloaf in the cafeteria. Tuesdays are meatloaf days, and Thursdays are chicken, if you can call it that. I sat in the rec room, pretending to read an old Tom Clancy novel. Truth is, I'd read it 3 times already. Hell, I could quote the damn thing. But pretending to read it gave me something to do besides watching the wall-mounted TV play reruns of game shows no one in the room remembered how to follow. A group of nurses passed by, pushing one of the newer residents, Mr. Caldwell, I think. He was a retired dentist or something. One of the nurses, a younger one, leaned over and said to her friend, "He used to be someone." Imagine that. That hit me like a gut punch. I looked down at the pages of the book, the words suddenly blurred. I realized she could have just as easily been talking about me. Used to be someone. 10 minutes later, I heard my name over the intercom, "John Murphy, please proceed to room 3C for your evaluation." John. John. I sat still for a moment, stunned. That's not my name. My name is Jack. Jack Francis Murphy. They had my chart. My files. Hell, I've been here 8 months. And yet, after all this time, they still got it wrong. I shuffled over to 3C anyway. The halls were quiet, a sterile smell clinging to the air like regret. A young doctor sat at the desk, couldn't have been older than 30. Hair too perfect. Voice too soft. "Mr. Murphy, I'm Dr. Hansen. We've been reviewing your mobility and cognitive assessments, and," he paused, flipping through papers, "we believe it's best you start considering assisted dependency services. Meaning a bit more help day to day." I stared at him. "I still wipe my own ass, Doc. Don't need a medal for it, but I don't need a handler either." He smiled, that pitiful kind of smile that people give to old dogs. "It's not about what you can do, Mr. Murphy. It's about ensuring your safety." My safety. I spent a year dodging sniper fire in jungles too thick to breathe in. I once took a bullet to the thigh pulling a kid out of a burning trailer. I've held dying men's hands and comforted mothers at crime scenes. And now, some fresh out of residency boy in tight scrubs was telling me how to be safe. I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly, as if considering his words. But inside, something broke. No, not broke, snapped into place. That's the thing about men like me. We don't explode. We endure. You ever hear a rope tighten? That soft stretch before the real pull begins. That's what it felt like. A pulling from inside my chest. A reminder. A sound that said, "You're still in here, Jack. They just forgot who you are." Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the framed photo of Linda. She was wearing her Sunday dress, the blue one with the small roses. Her eyes still had that spark in the picture. My hands shook as I picked up the frame. Not from age. From anger. "I let them forget me," I whispered. "I let them." Linda didn't answer, but I imagined what she'd say. She'd say what she always did, "You're stronger than this, Jack. You don't bend." And she was right. That night, I skipped dinner. Instead, I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Inside, my old sheriff's badge, a Polaroid of my squad from the war, and a small black notebook. I used to keep names in that notebook, people who needed help. Places I had to patrol. Now, I began writing a new list. Names of people who forgot who I was. Not out of spite. Not for revenge. But because I was done being erased. They thought I was quiet because I was weak. Truth is, I was quiet because I was watching. Learning. And now? Now, I was remembering. There's a certain kind of silence that lives in hospitals. Not the comforting kind. Not like the hush of snow falling on an old porch. No, this silence buzzes. It's the sound of lives paused, of breath held, of things unsaid. I learned to live inside that silence. After that meeting with the young doctor, after he called me John like I was just another folder in a drawer, I spent a lot of time by the window. Watching. Thinking. Remembering. I wasn't just wasting away in room 12B. I was gathering. That's when I started writing the letters. Not emails. Not texts. I took out an old yellow legal pad I kept in the bottom of my drawer, right beneath my sheriff's badge and Linda's rosary beads. I started with Brian. My son. Dear Brian. Do you remember the time I drove 6 hours through a blizzard to get you to that state championship game? You were 12. You didn't score a single point, but I cheered like you won the NBA. I carried your muddy sneakers back to the truck like they were gold. That night, we split a burger and you fell asleep in the back seat with ketchup on your cheek. I think about that night sometimes. It was one of the last times you really looked at me like I was something. I never needed thanks. But I never thought you'd leave me here, either. I didn't send it. I folded it once, neat and square, and placed it in the wooden box I had under my bed. That box was filling fast. I wrote to Emily next, my oldest granddaughter. 16. Bright. Always had that spark in her smile. Dear Em. When you were 5, you told me I was your super grandpa. You said I was stronger than Batman. I still remember that. I even cried a little that night when no one was looking. Now I see your life through filtered photos and birthday posts I'm never tagged in. I get it, I'm old, I'm slow, and I don't know how to work your apps. But I remember when you fell off your bike and scraped your knees raw. I carried you 2 miles home on my back. You never cried, you were too busy telling me I walked like a turtle. I kept that drawing you made, the one where we were both wearing capes. It's folded up in my wallet right now. Again, I didn't send it. None of the letters were meant for their eyes, not yet. Maybe not ever. They were for me. Because every day they forgot me, I remembered a little more of who I was. You see, I'd spent the last few months letting their silence define me. I started believing the world had moved on, that I was obsolete. A ghost in a chair. But these letters, they brought me back. I remembered cases I cracked. Lives I saved. I remembered the way Linda used to call me her oak tree, steady, strong, unmoving. I wrote to her too. My dearest Linda. They think I'm done. They think I've withered. But I haven't. You always said I carried storms in my chest. Well, there's a storm brewing now, sweetheart. Not out of anger. Out of truth. I'm going to make them see me again. Not by shouting. Not by demanding. I'll remind them who I am the way I always have. With quiet strength. That night, I laid awake long after lights out, staring at the ceiling. The nurse came in to check on me. She smiled, the fake one. Asked if I needed something. No, I said softly. I have everything I need. She didn't understand. That was fine. The thing about people today. They think silence means surrender. But me. I was raised differently. I knew the power of stillness. Of watching. Of waiting. And soon, very soon, I'd remind them all that Jack Murphy hadn't disappeared. He'd simply been preparing. There used to be a table. Oak. Sturdy. Seats for 6. It sat in the heart of our old house in Rockwell, under a crooked chandelier Linda hated. That table was where birthdays happened. Where Sunday dinners turned into debates, where grandkids spilled juice and I told stories about the war, clean ones, of course. It was a battlefield of mashed potatoes, laughter, burnt turkey, and everything that made a life feel full. Now. I eat my meals off a plastic tray in silence. One chair. No oak. No family. Just the steady beep of the microwave behind the nurse's desk and the TV blaring infomercials for wrinkle cream. You'd think they'd turn it down, but maybe they believe it gives us hope. Or reminds us we're aging badly. After the letters, something shifted in me. Not rage. Not some grand epiphany. Just a deep, unshakable knowing, I still had power. But it had to be quiet. Precise. Psychological. I didn't need to yell. I needed to be seen. And nothing spooks the living more than a ghost that decides to speak. So I started small. It began with Larry. Larry was the hallway tyrant. Used to be a truck driver, still thought he was king of the road. Laughed too loud, cut in line, called the female staff darlin' like it was still the 70s. One day, during bingo, he barked at Miss June, an 82-year-old widow who walked like glass and smiled like a child. She had taken the last apple juice from the fridge. He wanted it. She shrank back into herself like a leaf curling in winter. So I stood. Not loud. Not angry. Just stood. I walked over, looked Larry in the eye, and said, calm and clear. You ever raise your voice at her again, you'll find that juice box somewhere you won't enjoy. Dead silence. A few chuckles in the back. Larry blinked. Tried to puff up. But I didn't flinch. He backed off. The next morning, someone left a folded note on my tray. Just one sentence. Thanks for not being invisible. Signed, June. Funny thing about dignity, once you reclaim it, people start to remember you're alive. The staff looked at me differently after that. Not kindly, cautiously. I'd become unpredictable. Not in the way that scares them. In the way that forces respect. I started asking questions. About where the funding went. Why medications were delayed. Why Mr. Caldwell hadn't had a visitor in 4 months but somehow forgot to be listed for psych review. The kind of questions no one asked because they assumed we were too tired or too far gone to care. I wasn't angry. I was focused. They forgot I used to interrogate men who thought they'd outsmart the law. I could read a lie off a face like ink off paper. When Dr. Hansen passed me in the hall and smiled that dismissive smile, I didn't nod. I looked him dead in the eye. He looked away first. Small wins. And then I set the table. Not metaphorically. Literally. One night, I dragged one of the folding tables from the rec room into the corner of the common area. Took some plastic chairs. Wiped them down. Arranged 6 napkins. 6 plastic cups. A centerpiece made from fake hospital flowers. June helped. Said it reminded her of her anniversary dinners. When the other residents asked what it was for, I just said, family dinner. Old tradition. No one believed my family would come. They were right. They didn't. But the next day, I did it again. Then again. After a week, people started joining me. First June. Then Caldwell. Then a quiet woman named Teresa who never spoke but smiled with her whole face. It became a thing. We'd eat there, 6 of us. Sharing food, memories, silence. It wasn't rebellion. It was resistance. One night, a nurse whispered to another, "What's with Murphy? He's starting a cult." No. I wasn't starting anything. I was reminding people that I mattered. That we all did. The more we gathered, the more the staff took notice. Administrators started showing up. Notebooks in hand. Asking questions. Is everything okay with the residents? I smiled. Just dinner, sir. You remember dinner, don't you? They didn't get it. But the residents did. That oak table from my memory. It was gone. But in its place, I had built something stronger. A quiet revolution. And it was only just beginning. The letter must have done something. I didn't send it, not directly. But I left a copy, folded tight and quiet, inside the visitor book at the front desk, right behind the stack of outdated brochures about aging with grace. Tucked where I knew someone might find it by accident, or fate. 3 weeks passed. Then, they came. My son Brian arrived on a Saturday afternoon, dressed like he'd stepped out of a boardroom, tailored gray blazer, no tie, expensive watch. His wife, Diane, followed, face taut with polite concern. Behind them walked Emily, my granddaughter, in ripped jeans and earbuds, eyes locked on her phone like the floor might vanish if she looked up. "Dad," Brian said. He didn't even sit. "We thought we'd stop by. Things have been busy." Busy. That word again. Always so convenient. You can't fight it. Can't argue with it. Busy is like fog, it hides everything without ever taking blame. I looked at them, all 3. Tired. Hollow. Uncomfortable. Good. You found time, I said, voice calm. Miracle. Emily rolled her eyes, mumbled something about bad reception. She was already halfway back to the hallway. Diane placed a small gift bag on my side table. Inside was a candle shaped like a pine tree. "You always liked the outdoors," she smiled. I nodded. Very useful in a medical facility. Might burn it next time the defibrillator shorts out. Brian sighed. "Look, Dad." "No," I said. "You look." He blinked. I didn't raise my voice, didn't lean forward. I just looked at him the way I used to when deputies screwed up crime scenes or my rookies lost composure. "You left me here like a broken chair. I raised you. Trained you. Backed you through every dumb mistake and still told you I was proud. And you? You dumped me in a room and forgot I existed." "That's not fair," he started. "No," I interrupted, soft but sharp. "What's not fair is that I taught you strength and you learned convenience." Silence. Heavy. Real. I turned to Diane. Do you remember the dinner table? She furrowed her brow. What? In Rockwell. Oak table. 6 chairs. Linda's chili. You brought wine once and spilled it on the runner. I said it added character. A pause. Then, her eyes softened. I remember. Good, I said. Because it seems like I was the only one keeping the family glued together. The moment I got quiet, the whole damn house fell apart. Brian sat. His voice cracked a little. We didn't know what to do, Dad. You were angry. After Mom died. I wasn't angry, I said. I was grieving. There's a difference. But you didn't stay long enough to find out. He rubbed his face with his hands. Emily, to her credit, had stopped scrolling. She was watching me. Really looking. What do you want from us? Brian asked. Nothing, I said. And I meant it. I just wanted you to see it. To sit across from me and feel what I feel. Not guilt. Not shame. Weight. The weight of all the years I carried you, and how lightly you dropped me. Another silence. Then I gestured to the photo frame by my bedside, the one with Linda, smiling in her garden. She never would have let this happen. But she's not here. And I've decided to stop living like I'm waiting for someone to save me. Brian looked up. What does that mean? It means I'm done asking to be remembered. I stood slowly. My knees groaned, but I held my spine tall. I picked up my sheriff's badge from the drawer, brushed the dust off it, and held it out. I don't need this to know who I am. But maybe you do. He didn't take it. Just stared. Emily finally spoke. Grandpa, can I stay a while? I looked at her. Really looked. And for a moment, just a breath, I saw the 5-year-old girl in a cape, calling me Super Grandpa. I nodded. Brian and Diane left soon after. No hug. No promises. I wasn't bitter. I was free. That night, Emily sat beside me while we watched the sun melt into the parking lot. No words. Just presence. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. It was a Tuesday again. Meatloaf day. But this time, the cafeteria felt different. Quieter, somehow. Not because there were fewer voices, but because there was more attention. More stillness. Something had shifted. Not just in me, but around me. Larry now helped push June's chair without being asked. Caldwell had started shaving again, and Teresa, the silent one, hummed while buttering toast. It wasn't much. But it meant something. Respect doesn't come from yelling. It comes from stillness. From standing tall long enough for others to notice they've been looking down. I no longer sat in room 12B waiting for visits. I held court at the dinner table we set up in the common area. 6 chairs. 1 for each of us. And sometimes, a 7th. Emily. She started showing up on weekends. At first it was just an hour. Then longer. She brought puzzles, real coffee, and once, a photo album she made herself. The first page was me and Linda on the porch, 20 years back. The second, a crayon drawing I thought was long lost, me with a cape, lifting a tiny red-haired girl over my head. You kept it, I whispered. I found it, she said. I wanted to remember who you were. I smiled. Now you know who I still am. She stayed quiet a moment, then added, I told Dad he should be ashamed. He said he doesn't know how to fix things. Tell him, I said, it's not about fixing. It's about showing up. Emily nodded, eyes glassy. I never spoke badly about Brian. That was part of the lesson. Resentment is loud, but it teaches nothing. Silence, though, silence with purpose. It echoes. One morning, I woke early. Before the nurses, before breakfast trays. I sat by the window, holding a pen, staring at the legal pad where all my unsent letters lived. This time, it wasn't a letter. It was a lesson. To whoever finds this. You may think I'm just an old man in a quiet room. But I've lived more than most ever dare. I've held guns, badges, babies, and broken hearts. I've been feared, trusted, forgotten, and now, finally, remembered. This place won't honor my legacy. It doesn't need to. Because legacy isn't carved in stone. It's carried in the memory of the people who choose to remember you. And the ones you choose to remind. I tore the page carefully and placed it on the small table near the nurse's station. No name. No signature. Just ink and truth. They framed it a week later. Hung it in the hallway by the elevators. Author unknown, the plaque read. I didn't correct them. Let them wonder. The last real snowfall of the year came late. Emily sat by the window with me, her head on my shoulder. The staff had brought us hot cocoa, real stuff, not the powdered trash. Someone had turned on jazz from the rec room radio. The world felt soft. Do you ever think about dying? She asked. I nodded. All the time. Are you scared? No, I said. I already died once. The day your grandma passed. The day your dad stopped calling. The day they called me John. She looked up. And now, she whispered. I smiled. Now I'm alive again. Because I was. Not the way I used to be, with a badge or a gun or a lecture in my throat. But something better. Present. Awake. Unapologetically here. I didn't need to yell. Or punish. Or disappear. All I needed was to stand tall again. And when the time came, when the chair at the table was empty one morning and the cocoa went untouched, I hope they didn't cry too much. I hope they remembered the silence. I hope they remembered the lesson. Because some storms don't scream when they arrive. They whisper. And leave the world changed forever.
Subscribe and like, and send the video to your friends.